Okay, so the camera shut off actually, and I don't know if it's even pointed in the right direction or whatever, but we'll continue this. I believe what I was saying was that Gwynne pulled up an interesting opinion in that she states that all the time and money in the world does not yield the best results. And she uses that to justify, I guess, the strict time constraints that they're under and why it's not necessarily a bad thing. It, I guess, forces them to be innovative and creative and to have a sense of urgency in what they're creating. And I think, I mean, that's logical. It seems like it's conducive to their success. So, don't break or don't fix it if it's broke if it's not broken. Yeah, that's how the saying goes. Don't fix it if it's not broken. So, the next thing that I wanted to pull up, or I wanted to pull it up before the previous statement, was she said whenever Elon, demands something that's particularly rigorous in the time constraint or seems impossible, she said pause and do not immediately say that's impossible. And she says to zip it, think about it, and you find ways to get that done. And I thought that was that was a very important point because I think a lot of people see some task or any situation, any problem that they're trying to solve or get done, and they think they can't do it and they give up immediately. But she states that sometimes you just need to be quiet your inner voice that says that this is impossible, you can't do this, and think through all of the available options and try and get creative in your solutions, and that after enough searching, there's a possibility you can find a way to do it. Kind of where there's a will, there's a way. And after that, you get away from talking about the company's inner workings and Gwynne herself, and we move into the part of the presentation where they speak more on the future goals of SpaceX, which is what the actual talk is labeled after. SpaceX's plan to fly you across the globe in, okay, well, had a little bit of a seizure there. SpaceX's plan to fly you across the globe in 30 minutes. And so they wait until the very end of the speech to actually talk about this, but I guess there was build up. They had to give some context to what they're talking about. And the first thing that they mention is creating a massive network of low Earth orbit satellites to provide high bandwidth, low cost internet connection to everyone on Earth. And safe to say that's a very demanding endeavor to go after. I think it'd be very, very hard and very interesting. Of course, it would benefit pretty much everybody, but it would cost a ridiculous amount of money. And I think one of the major problems that they pulled up during the presentation and the conversation they were having on stage was that whenever you're sending this many satellites into orbit, there's the possibility that something goes wrong and you create a lot of orbital trash, space trash, I guess. And this can cause problems with the orbits, and I don't really know the context behind it, the physics or the science, but it sounded like it could be a problem. And cost is obviously a problem, so they would have to make a business model out of this, this plan. Next, they move into the BFR, I guess, which is what they're planning to use to help people travel across the world in 30 minutes, which is absolutely insane if you ask my opinion. And it's really what I wanted to speak on, even though I've been speaking for what, I don't know, I don't have a time or a watch, so I've been speaking for a freaking long time though. It's the BFR itself is made from the residual capabilities of their first engine, which is what all of their rockets have been built off of, is the residual capabilities of the first engine, which is just a fancy way of saying they take that same engine and they just put a whole lot of them together and make it into a bigger rocket. So all they're doing is adding a whole lot of engines together, which is the same engine. But Gwynne states that the reason for that is actually because it's more efficient. It's costly, but I think she says that it saves them in the long run, just to kind of not mass produce, because they're not creating that many of them, but to use the same model and expand upon it, versus to start from scratch and create a whole new engine and design for the next ships and rockets that they use. So the BFR, it's also what they're planning to use eventually to take people to Mars. And they gave the time frame for this for both endeavors, to let people travel across the globe in 30 minutes and to take people to Mars. They gave the time frame as a decade. So that's very, very close, and I think it's a little bit of an ambitious time frame, but I guess we'll see. Okay, so they said the cross-road travel would be using the BFR, be around 40 minutes. I guess she says 30 minutes and then 40 minutes and roughly an hour. So they're all really, really fast, but I guess there's not a very hardened time, I guess, or whatever, a consensus on what the exact time frame would be for traveling across the world. Obviously, cost efficiency and competitiveness is a problem, because whenever you launch a rocket, it takes a crap ton of propellant to get it out of the atmosphere. You have to break something with a lot of mass out of Earth's gravitational field, which takes a whole lot of energy and force. So I'm not exactly sure. They didn't explain too well how they would make this cost efficient and competitive in pricing, I guess, against conventional methods, which is just to take a plane across the world. Yeah, then also you have to think about, they didn't mention it in the talk, but how much fuel is going to be used from that thing with every single trip. And you know, there's already been talk for a while now about depleting natural resources such as fossil fuels and whatever else. Yeah, fossil fuels pretty much, which is what I'm assuming they use for the rocket propellant. So I don't know if there's going to have to be research into alternative fuel sources, but it would be very hard to find something else than, you know, combustible gas to create the same amount of energy to send a rocket up into space. But one of the things that she said could be used to make the pricing for the rocket more competitive, you know, the price for each trip across the world, would be, because the flight is so short, that the BFR could obviously do, I think the number she gave was 10x, so 10 times the amount of flights that a conventional plane could do, I guess, a trip every day. So so they would obviously, you know, accrue more revenue during their work day, because they would be flying so many more flights, which is, you know, it makes sense, it's logical, but I still I still don't think it would make it viable yet. They would have to expand in more detail for me to be convinced. Yeah, but that's about all they spoke on. And you know, of course, the ultimate goal, I've said it like 3 times now, of SpaceX is to actually take people to Mars using this BFR, I guess, or maybe a different model rocket. And the BFR, by the way, is going to be, I think she said, 2.5 of the Falcon Heavy rockets put together. And the Falcon Heavy, yeah, the Falcon Heavy was being held in a hangar, she said, that could hold the Statue of Liberty. So these are some big ass rockets, excuse my language, but that's crazy. And the BFR is going to be 2.5 of the Falcon Heavies. So they're just taping together a whole lot of the Merlin engines. But I thought the talk was altogether really, really interesting, which is why I wanted to do a talk on it.